In 2013, a lawyer told the post office, in writing, that their own star witness had lied under oath. He said the company was now legally required to tell hundreds of already convicted people the truth. Instead, the post office's head of security ordered the meeting minutes about it shredded. That's not the famous part of this story. You've probably heard the famous part. It became a TV drama. This is the part that never made it into that drama, the specific paper trail proving the company knew, on the record, years before it admitted anything publicly. One of the people convicted before that warning was ever acted on was a woman named Seema Misra. In 2010, she was sent to prison for stealing £74,000. She was 8 weeks pregnant. She hadn't stolen anything. The evidence against her came entirely from a computer, and the computer was wrong. Between 1999 and 2015, more than 900 people were prosecuted the same way. Here's exactly how it happened, including the parts that got left out of the version you already know. A public inquiry later found a real possibility that 13 of them took their own lives. This is now officially called one of the largest miscarriages of justice in British history. And it all traces back to one design decision, buried inside a piece of accounting software that almost nobody thought to question for over a decade. In the UK, the post office isn't just where you buy stamps. It's where people renew driving licenses, pay taxes. For millions of people, it functions like a bank, which means an enormous amount of real money flows through thousands of small branches every single day, run mostly by ordinary local shop owners called Sub-Postmasters. In 1999, the post office rolled out a new system, Horizon, built by the Japanese tech giant Fujitsu. At the time, it was the largest non-military IT project in Europe, the trap hidden in the design. Because it's really the whole story in one moment. At the end of each trading day, Horizon calculated what the cash and stock in a branch should add up to. If the real numbers didn't match, the software gave the sub-postmaster exactly one way to keep working. Press Accept Now and move on. That button wasn't just a technical formality. The post office treated it as a legally binding admission that the sub-postmaster personally owed that money. Question the shortfall, call the helpline, insist the software was wrong. None of it mattered once Accept Now had been pressed. You put in a coin, the screen freezes, so you press the button again and again until a snack finally drops out. You walked away with exactly what you paid for. Think about how a bug could actually create a phantom shortfall like that. Imagine a vending machine. The company would demand full repayment, sometimes tens of thousands of pounds, from a shop owner's personal savings, under threat of losing their contract or facing prosecution. But behind the scenes, the machine's system may have logged 4 separate purchases instead of 1. At the end of the day, someone has to explain where the other 3 items went. Multiply that single frozen screen moment across thousands of branches, millions of transactions a day, and you get exactly the kind of untraceable Horizon kept generating. Except here, it wasn't a vending machine company writing off the loss. It was real people being told to personally repay money that never actually went missing. This wasn't hypothetical. Investigators later named these failures. 1. The Dalmellington bug worked almost exactly like that frozen vending machine. The screen was completely frozen. Every extra press was silent, logging a new £8,000 debit. It was completely invisible on the screen. One sub-postmaster ended up with a phantom £24,000 shortfall from a single frozen moment, and the post office demanded she pay it back immediately. Why nobody could prove the software was wrong. This is where a second, quieter detail made everything worse. Honestly, the part that made my jaw drop first reading this. In 1999, UK law changed. Previously, prosecutors had to prove a computer was working correctly before using its records as evidence. That requirement was repealed. From then on, courts legally presumed computer systems were reliable unless the defendant could prove otherwise. Think about what that means for a second. For a sub-postmaster with no access to Horizons, all of which the post office routinely refused to hand over, that was nearly impossible. The burden of proof had quietly flipped, and almost nobody noticed until it was already ruining lives. Seema ran a small branch in a Surrey village. The system reported a £74,000 shortage. She was pruffed. She refused to plead guilty to something she hadn't done. She was convicted anyway and sent to prison in 2010, pregnant on her son's 10th birthday. Years later, the public inquiry uncovered something else. Post office lawyers had been forwarded an email identifying known bugs in Horizon on the very eve of her trial.
It was never disclosed to her defense. She wasn't unique. Lee Castleton, a sub-postmaster in Yorkshire, refused to pay a shortfall he believed the software had caused.
The post office spent over £300,000 taking him to court, and a solicitor later admitted the company knew he couldn't afford to pay if he lost. They pursued it anyway, to send a message to anyone else questioning the system. When the company knew and chose the language instead, Fujitsu had signed a confidential contract as early as 2006 acknowledging bugs could corrupt branch ledgers and quietly held remote access that let engineers alter branch accounts without a sub-postmaster's knowledge, something both companies had publicly denied under oath. Remember that warning from the hook? Here's the rest of it. The lawyer's name was Simon Clark. The witness he was warning them about was Fujitsu's own chief engineer, the man whose testimony had helped convict hundreds of sub-postmasters. Clark's message was blunt. They knew, and they were legally obligated to disclose it. The post office sat on that warning. Then came the instruction to shred the minutes of the meetings where it had been discussed. And when the word bugs started becoming a liability, looking for a non-emotive replacement, the post office's own chief executive asked her team for a non-emotive replacement. Internal documents show staff were told to start calling software bugs branch exceptions instead, a rebrand designed to make defective code sound like ordinary paperwork. The decade it took to unravel. A small UK trade publication, Computer Weekly, ran the first article these sub-postmasters a voice, all the 2009. The post office was a trusted national institution, and a handful of shopkeepers claiming a computer was wrong didn't stand a chance against that. So it took a full decade, until 2019, before a high court judge finally ruled that Horizon did contain bugs capable of causing exactly these shortfalls. Even that wasn't enough to force real change. It took one more thing. In January 2024, a television drama, Mr. X versus the Post Office, turned this into a story the entire country was suddenly talking about, and within days, forced the government into emergency legislation to overturn convictions in bulk. You read that right. It took a television drama, not a court ruling, to actually move the government. Their conviction was finally quashed in 2021. It took 11 years. Where it stands now. You'd think a scandal this size would be finished by now. It isn't. The public inquiry's full final report still hasn't been published. And Fujitsu, the company that built the software at Horizon for the post office today, under a contract extended to at least 2027, funded by UK taxpayers. Why this isn't just Britain's problem. Here's what should stay with you. This wasn't a hack or an outside attack. It was an institution that trusted a computer more than the people running its own branches, backed by a legal system that, for 2 decades, simply assumed the machine was right. Legal scholars are now pushing to reverse that same presumption worldwide, because nothing about this is unique to one country's postal service. Seema Misra got her name back. Many others are still waiting. And the report that's supposed to explain exactly how deep this went still isn't finished. Here's what we didn't get to today. We know that meeting happened. We don't fully know everything said in it before the minutes were destroyed. The CEO, who wanted a friendlier word than bugs, later handed back her CBE and told the inquiry her own language manipulation was wrong and stupid. Internal reports later revealed that certain leadership figures had been financially rewarded for their level of participation in the formal inquiry into their own corporate actions. That's the next video. Not the bug, but the people who knew and chose the cover-up instead. Subscribe, because when it finally is, we'll be covering exactly what it says.